It's Thad at Willoway again. Here, talk about a little bit on some of our tree hydrangea production. We'll get to that a little bit. I want to talk about degree days though. We're at 283 degree days. Right now we've had some overcast weather, so we haven't built a lot since last time we did a video, but we're expected to have some warm weather, so we're going to climb pretty quickly. I did want to talk about one pest we just crossed over, was imported willow leaf beetle. Can be bad on any of their salix, so it's one you want to watch for and scout. Generally early in the morning, it's a little black beetle. It's pretty small, but when it's cool in the mornings here, you can do the paper test on the branches and see if you get any. They'll look like little black balls kind of, and that's one at 274 degree days. Some of the other stuff coming up is at 305 is pine needle scale. The first egg hatch happens, so that's something you want to watch for. There's white flecks on the needles, and then they'll start crawling out towards the tips, so you'll be watching for that. 308 is eastern and Cooley spruce gall adelgid egg hatch. So that's another one you want to look on any of your spruce. If you have galls or growths at the tips of the branches, those will spread out and affect the new emerging growth. So you want to get on that as well. And also at 305 is Van Hoot spirea is in full bloom, and that's a real good indicator plant. It's a little bit of the old-fashioned bridal wreath, but it's a real good indicator through the whole season here in the early part. So that's probably a good reference point if you have that around. The other one is at 3015 is common lilac, or Syringa vulgaris is in full bloom. So that's another real good indicator plant for this time of year. So you'd time some of this stuff to those plants. The other ones that are coming up is 330 is lilac borer. Lilac borer can get into a number of things, but can be kind of devastating. So you'll want to watch for that. The adult emergence is happening now. That looks a little bit like a wasp. So, but they'll be flying around at the bases of your trees, lilacs. And then 335, a new one, is the spotted lanternfly. This is the emergence of the nymphs. Is supposed to be the peak. So this is one that we want to kind of keep our eye on and make sure you're scouting through and making sure that you know what you're looking for on that one. It's kind of a real colorful nymph. They're black and white to start, black mostly with white spots, but they do also get a little color to them. The other thing that's coming up on our radar is treatment for gypsy moth. We talked a couple weeks ago about the hatch happening, but we are in like a treatment phase now, so that's going to be coming up either this week or early next week, depending on our degree days. So we really want to target into the either second or third instar on that particular for the gypsy moth for regulatory. So we are planning on doing sprays. So a couple things in this house. I wanted to talk a little bit about our tree hydrangea production. As you can see, we've got lots of trees started here. This is a 2-year root stock, and then we run them back up again. So this program we've been refining over the years. We can produce quite a bit. We have lots of houses, but this is a good opportunity to talk about some of our biological controls. So Hydrangea pedularis in a greenhouse production tends to get a lot of spider mites because we run a lot of heat in here to get them to go and shoot up early. So spider mites have been one of our major problems. We used to do a weekly spray for them. We've switched over and we're doing biological releases now, and coupled with a high amount of scouting and early detection. So we have really very few spider mites anymore with our biological releases. But one pest that we have seen come up that we have to target specifically, either with a biological that's designed to take it out, or we do spot sprays that are safe for the biological, is called broad mite. And some people may not be familiar with that, or may not. It's a very small, you need a microscope or a good hand lens to be able to see them. But what happens is on the tissue, it looks like you get a kind of a strapping, or it almost looks like chemical injury or a herbicide injury on the leaf. And that's a real good way to detect it. It generally is in small pockets, but can spread if you don't treat for it. So show you a little bit of that. If you look at like a plant like this, you can start to see how it's all kind of strapped out, and the leaves are not normal anymore like you would see. So Once we treat that, the leaves will come back out and they'll be normal again. That means we've got good control, but we do monitor for this one. Last year we saw an uptick in broad mite. This year a little bit. Aphids have been kind of heavy, but we're starting to see aphids slow down a little bit for us. So a couple things just to keep an eye out for and be looking for. They're kind of quality issue, but in our production we really want to make sure we're pushing these as hard so we keep them as stress-free, and if we can use biologicals to help us control this stuff, all that much better. So hopefully you learned something and have a good week.